All right, good evening, everyone. It is Wednesday evening here on the Master of Dungeons Twitch channel, and means it's time for Tavern Talks at the Shifty Boar. We have guests pop in on occasion, pretty much every week, to discuss the wonderful game, the world's greatest role-playing game, Dungeons and Dragons, their experiences with it, and what they do in D&D. And tonight we are joined by the wonderfully talented Eric Menge. Welcome in, good sir. Thank you,
Hello.
sir. Thank you for coming on the show with us tonight. For those of you that might not know Eric, he is what's the word I'm looking for? Very proficient and excellent writer of Dungeons and Dragons, a
Thank you.
story editor, and a story architect, which we're going to discuss a little bit this evening. How's it going? Doing all right?
Oh, since I'm here for Tavern, I brought my iced coffee.
Excellent, excellent. Yes.
That'll work. Oh, I'm doing
So.
great.
So first of all, let's go ahead and just ask the question we always ask everyone. How were you introduced, or how did you begin playing Dungeons & Dragons?
Oh, it was many, many years ago, Mitch, when there was a time called the Satanic Panic. And yes, exactly. So that was when I was introduced, was the same period of time as Stranger Things is set.
Mm-hmm.
And weirdly at all, it was a fellow kid in the church youth group
Ooh.
that asked me if I wanted to play this game. I was like, what is this game? He said, Dungeons and Dragons. He whispered so that nobody could hear it. And his parents were permissive for the age.
Okay, very cool.
Play.
Nice. Did you actually start as a player or as a DM?
Well, as a player.
Okay.
I played in my friend's game. And
Okay.
he had an older kid who was college age and knew all the rules and had all these weird looking books that you could only buy in certain stores.
Mm-hmm. Those hidden secret stores on college campuses, different locations. Yeah.
We even
So,
had a car to get to them, and all of us junior high kids, we don't have a car.
try to get your older brother or sister to take you to the game store. So, when did you start as the DM? Do you remember when you began DMing?
Well, it was the aforementioned car problem. I couldn't make it to my friend's house, so I talked to all the other local kids in the neighborhood to play with me. And we were trying the Secret of Bone Hill.
Oh, yes.
By Len Lakofka, which is L1. For those who are not familiar with it, it's a first edition adventure, one of the earliest ones printed, set on the Lindor Isles off the east coast of the world of Greyhawk.
Awesome. So speaking of Greyhawk, you've written D&D products for numerous different world settings, different campaign settings and such like that.
Any place they lowered their standards, I could slide in. I would go right for them.
So what? Let's go ahead. What's your favorite campaign setting, and what is the favorite edition of D&D that you've written for?
Ooh. Well, the edition is probably second.
Okay.
Followed very closely by fifth.
Mm-hmm.
To the point that whenever I home game things, I kind of take fifth and modify it and make it more second, like a little bit of third thrown in because I like skill points. As a location, there's a dear place in my heart for the city of Greyhawk. Janky, jaded, kind of run down and gritty city of Greyhawk, run by thieves. In the middle, because it's just so well situated for adventure. Cairn Hills to the east, with the gnarly forest to the west, the bright desert to the southeast, and then there's the swamps, Mist Marsh. Anyway, that's all right there. It's very convenient.
Yeah, so for those of you watching, anytime I have questions about D&D lore, I'll usually shoot Eric a quick direct message. Hey, you got any information about this? And he actually set me up for some of the new Dreams of the Red Wizards stuff with some of the lore masters of Cormyr, so we could do some stuff in Cormyr, which was great talking about. So, speaking of locations, let's go ahead and go into a fun question. For those of you that might not be aware, of course, we do always talk about the Adventurers League here on the channel. We do play our live play game. It's played with Adventurers League rules. So speaking of organized play, you've been a storyline architect for 2 different organized play campaigns now.
Yes.
Maybe tell us a little bit about those and how that is different than DMing your own homebrew campaign.
All right, sure. We'll start with the first part. The 2 campaigns I ran. One of them was I was a triad member for Living Greyhawk, which was the organized play campaign that for 3rd edition. So it preceded Living Forgotten Realms, which precedes the Adventurers League. So if we get on our Wayback Machine, go all the way back to the heady years, the 2000, we barely survived the Y2K bug. And have this new idea of bringing Greyhawk back for the masses. For those who are unaware, Greyhawk was Gary Gygax's home campaign for the most part, and during the 2nd edition era, it kind of went underground and didn't get a tremendous amount of support. And a lot of things were instead focused on the Forgotten Realms, which I also love. They're 2 fantastic settings, but they kind of do different things. With Greyhawk, Living Greyhawk, they were trying to bring that back to the modern player for 3rd edition. Now they had a brilliant idea, which captured lightning in a bottle, which was they would take a country in Greyhawk and assign it to a geographic region of the world, mostly the United States, because that's where a bulk of the D&D players were at the time. And we got the Grand Duchy of Jeff, which is the location in Greyhawk that has the giants from the Against the Giants series, which is in Jeff and Steric, which is the country just to the south of us. So we had giants. And we got to play with lots and lots and lots of giants who have conquered the entire country, kicked all the humans out and all the small races out, and are taking it over as their own. And so the entire campaign was a campaign to a war to reclaim Jeff from the giants. It was fantastic. And one of the most interesting things is you could only play it if you played at conventions in the Mid-Atlantic region, which would be Maryland, Delaware, Virginia, DC, West Virginia.
Okay.
If you live, say, up in Pennsylvania, New York, and New Jersey, you would be playing in Keelan's Adventures, which is where the Ghosts of Saltmarsh is set. And the Sinister Secret and all of those adventures were all in Keeland, and there's more. If you went down to the Carolinas, you had the Grand March, and that is where the Orlane is. N1. The Cult of the Reptile God, if I remember correctly, was set in that place. So it was fascinating because you could go from different locations and you got completely different campaigns. So it was like 30 mini campaigns in one big campaign. Now, the downside of that is that a tremendous amount of adventures got unplayed by most of the people because you could only play them in one of the 30 locations. So if you weren't lucky enough to live there,
you didn't have a convention. Yeah, if you didn't have a convention to go to in that area, yeah.
But the upside to it is that it drew people in from all over the country, like High Folk, which is Wisconsin, was doing lots of stuff with IUs, the evil, and people would travel to go to High Folk conventions because they were really good and their adventures were amazing. So that is one of the first experience was Greyhawk, where we had the giants, and I was looking for something to balance out all those giants who were big, tough, strong, lots of hit points, clobbered you for massive damage. But I didn't want to do that all the time, because if you do the same thing constantly, players get bored.
Mm.
So I had to change it up. And I
Mhm.
started flipping through the books. I was saying, like, okay, what is the most ungiant like thing I can find? Dragons? No, that's just flying giants. Boulders? Well, maybe. Fairies. Yes. Highly magical, no hit points, inability to clobber you whatsoever, but they were all about make me a saving throw.
Mhm.
And at that point, the evil laughter burst out, and Jeff became known as the region that had a massive fairy infusion into it. Because at that time in third edition, there was no Fey Wild yet.
Yeah, yeah.
There was just fairy, and it was barely touched upon in the reference books. I
Mhm.
think if you go to the Manual of the Plains, it might mention fairy, but I think it's like that much of one
Yeah,
column.
couple paragraphs or something, yeah.
Yeah, just saying, oh yeah, fairies live here. People are dumb. No one plays with them. I may be paraphrasing there. Um, but we went hardcore into our fairies and just try to draw as much from British folklore as we could.
Mhm.
And however, prepared me for the next campaign admin that I got
Mhm.
to do, which was when 5e came about. I was with Bald Man Games at the time and doing adventure writing for them, and Sean Merwin asked me if I wanted to take over from him because I think he was about ready to head off and do this Ghostfire Gaming gig that he's got going right now.
Mhm.
He needed to tie off some obligations that he had made to the Bald Man. And he asked me if I wanted to be the story architect for the Moonshae Isles. And for those who are unaware of what the Moonshae Isles are, they are pretty much they are Douglas Niles, who is one of the original writers for D&D, and his names are all over a lot of the classic books. Loved a series of novels, of young adult novels called The Chronicles of Prydain,
Mhm.
which most people will know through the Disney movie The Black Cauldron,
Mhm.
which is terrible and does not do the series justice at all. Because the Chronicles of Prydain are amazing, and he channeled all of that energy through the lens of Dungeons and Dragons and came up with the Moonshae Isles, which had an Earth Mother who was the spirit of the land, and you had Vikings, and you had Druids, and you had werewolves, and you had a giant Leviathan that swam beneath the sea. You had giants marauding, and everything that was in Prydain kind of went through into the Moonshaes of Dark Ages Britain.
Yeah, yeah.
And
So,
I
my
love
question
that stuff.
well,
So I got
speaking
to
of
do
that,
it a second time, and this time go hardcore. One thing we did not have in Jeff is we didn't have any Vikings,
gotcha.
which we got to fix. I have lots of Vikings now in Moonshaes. So Vikings with fairies and unicorns and druids and giants. Oh my!
Yeah, so a question for you though is you've led the BMG storyline for the Moonshays of what, 3 years?
Maybe it was
Over,
over COVID. Time of
oversaw
year.
the production of 60 different adventures for that. I did get the privilege of writing 2 of those. So my question is, why did you agree to do that? And do you have any respect for your family or work-life balance? The inner Stephen Colbert question there.
Oh, so one. All right. Well, the why I signed up for it, you kind of touched on the answer. I had help. I
Mhm.
had a lot of help. So in addition to me as the campaign, as the storyline lead, underneath of me were trilogy leads.
Mhm.
And I had some amazingly talented people. Savannah, Peter, Amy, uh, uh, oh God, I'm blanking out, Joe, And we had a lot of these people who, the trilogy leads that did the heavy lifting. And as you can imagine from the name, trilogy leads, each one of them was in charge of a trilogy of 3 adventures.
Mhm.
Um, and so the by kind of dispersing the obligations and the work through a larger team, we were able to barely keep up. I will freely admit that we were kind of ambitious on that schedule. But that's because at the time we did not have the glorious Dragonlance campaign, nor did we have the Dreams of the Red Wizards to help shoulder the load of adventures at Gen Con Origins and Winter Fantasy for Bold Man Games. And now that we have those other campaigns, the Moonshaes can scale back a little bit to sane numbers of adventures per year, as opposed to trying to put out 6 different trilogies a year, which
Yeah.
is a lot.
And the thing is, too, I always tell remind the viewers and such that even though we play Adventures League, even though these modules, these adventures are written for Adventures League, you don't have to play Adventures League to run and play these modules. The story is amazing. It takes you all the way through. It's got ups and downs. It's got romance. It's got action. It's got insidiousness here and there throughout it. It's a really, really fun story to play. And like I said, 60 adventures. Some of them you can't find on the adventures on the DM's Guild. Most of them you can. There are certain special ones that you can only play every once in a while at a specific event. Yeah, some of the specials for the different trilogies. Some trilogies had one. Like if you went to Gen Con, you might get to play a DDXP track with a new trilogy that would have a special there. So I do have another question about the Moonshaes. And we discussed it with the Moonshae lore of flora and fauna and such with when I was doing a couple of the adventures. One of the most storied areas of the Forgotten Realms, the Douglas Nile novels. A lot of history there, appearing in multiple novels and throughout, all the editions of D&D. How did you include nods to fans, nods to the lore of the Moonshaes, to fans of the Forgotten Realms that have been there the whole time, without overwhelming new players with too much information that they might not really have knowledge of because of not being new to the game?
That's a trick. And the way I mostly handled it was I made the lore Easter eggs.
Mm-hmm.
So it was all sprinkled in there. It was grounded in lore, but we made sure as we did not assume that the players knew it. So NPCs would be introduced. The House Kendrick, who are the ruling house of the Moonshaes, whose ancestors feature prominently in those novels that were published by TSR at the time, all written by Douglas Niles. But we did not presume that the players had read that. And sometimes we would have little tidbits tucked in there as Easter eggs that really didn't affect the plot, but players who knew the lore would recognize it.
Okay.
And so make it optional was our answer.
Okay.
Writing this for the first time for everyone, but people who have been reading and been along where it could and say, I know the deep lore. I was there when it was written. And then they get all warm and fuzzy about it. Like the adventure you wrote, you did one of the epics for us.
Yes,
and we included the Sisters of Sonoria.
Yes.
And the sisters are a big deal in the books.
Oh, yeah.
A huge deal. And we had to introduce them to the players. And we tried to give them as epic of an introduction as we could, and as strong of a storyline as we could. And we had players who have been fans of the Moonshaes for 30 years who would come up to us and stuff like, it was so exciting to finally ride alongside the Sisters of Sonoria. Because if you bought the original box set for the Forgotten Realms, as you can see, it's been loved. One of the books in here has a cover from Dark Sugar on Moonshae.
Mm-hmm.
These are the Sisters of Sonoria. So people who've been playing this game for 30 years have been looking at this image the whole time. And then they finally get to ride alongside of these extremely competent and skilled and valorous elven knights. And
They're all women.
that made a lot of and that made a lot of that touched a lot of people. And I was glad we were able to include that.
So I also hear that you are writing a Moonshae adventure for the new storyline headed up by Paul and Savannah. That is going to be premiering at Gen Con, I believe, right?
Yes.
What can we expect from that?
It is MD12, which is the adventure for the Malevolent Delusions storyline. I was Rising Shadows. They are Malevolent Delusions. And Savannah believed I was capable of writing an adventure to challenge tier 3 characters. And because I had to do it a lot at the end of Rising Shadows.
Oh, yeah.
And, I was like, okay, I can do this for you. And it's been a lot of, she gave me her outline, or her concept. I wrote an outline based on that. She gave feedback. I made changes. And what can you expect? Mass chaos. If you've been following the storyline for what's going on, it's the future of Corridor lies in balance. Now, what is Corridor? Corridor is a Fey city that shifts from the Feywild into the Forgotten Realms and back again, and it is the capital of the city, the Ladrin Kingdom on the Isle of Gwyneth. And the fact that it is under dire threat is devastating news to the Moonshaes. It's going to need heroes. As we have said many times, the Moonshaes has always relied upon its heroes.
So, how is writing as a story editor versus being just the story editor? You know what I mean? Like how's a different approach to coming up with the concept as the architect and then editing the stories versus being a story editor and then writing the actual adventure yourself?
Well, one thing is you set the plot when you're the story editor, when you're the architect, so you know what the big picture is supposed to be. As an individual writer, you're silo. So I know this much. I know this slice of the cake. I don't know what's in the rest of the cake. I only know what's in this slice. So I have to rely upon my editor to fill me in. And a lot of this, it requires a lot of back and forth and questioning. Like, oh, by the way, is there anything you want me to include? Are there any C's that need to go here? I want to, okay, we can take this piece and put it in here if that's what you want. Because I'm supposed to be giving my editor what she wants. And the way we're doing a lot of that is with the outline, which is getting more and more detailed as we go down and we work out all the things.
Nice. Well, I do have another question since we're talking about what your current projects are. Someone told me, I don't know where I got the information, that you are writing an epic multi-table event adventure with Krishna for the Dreams of the Red Wizards campaign. Someone told me that. I'm not sure who it was that told me that information. But
all right, Mr. I'm in charge of the Dreams of the Red Wizard campaign.
So my question is, this is a serious question, because when I went through, I wrote down, I gave you guys just like kind of vomited onto a page for you guys what I was kind of thinking about for the epic. Actually, myself, I've never actually written an epic. I mean, the special was kind of similar, but what actually goes into writing those that's different than writing just a normal single table adventure? Because that's something I myself really want to know about, because I know I'm going to have to eventually write one of these, and just to get some insight on that.
Krishna is the master at this, and I'm glad to be able to assist him in this. And it's like kind of like Ringo. I'm just happy to be here. It's a joy to help out with these sort of things and to see how the sausage is made, and also dream up new types of sausage. With an epic, the big difference is keep in mind you're dealing with not just one table, you're dealing with 10. And while they can all play the same adventure at the same time, what really makes an epic thing is the ability of those tables to interact with each other.
Mhm.
For example, one of our most popular epics we did in the Moonshae Isles is the Kraken. And the Kraken had these big tentacles and had the special power of it would pick up a player at one table and literally throw that character and the player to another table.
Mhm.
And so we would tell the player, pick up your stuff, go move over to that table now. You're playing with them because you've been Kraken flung.
Yep.
And then that table would fling somebody else because we wanted to not have more than 6 players at a table.
Yeah.
And the players love the players getting mixed up and back and forth. Another fantastic epic was the ones they did with Gangs of Waterdeep at Origins many years ago now, which was based around the Waterdeep dragon heist, where all the players were competing thief groups trying to pull off the major heist. And the question was, who is going to be the real thieves who actually got the prize? And the answer was whoever scored the most points during the interactive. So you were kind of in competition with the other tables, but at the same time, you had to help each other because there was an interactive LARP portion of it where you all popped up from your table and had to wander around the table and NPCs and get information out of them and then bring the information back to your table. And one table might have a piece of information, that other table might have a piece of information. So the key is interactivity of the tables.
Okay.
Now, when you're talking 10, 20 tables, you're now talking 60, 120 people playing one giant game that is loosely associated with each other.
Mhm.
And you can do this in a lot of different ways. Like Gangs of Waterdeep did it as a heist. The Kraken fight did it as a giant assault against one massive super powered Kraken, which had plenty of hit points to be spread over that many tables. So I think you're mostly just fighting its tentacles, not actually its the Kraken itself.
Body. Yeah.
You can also do this as a as a battle interactive, where every table leads a unit in battle, and as you push the battle back and forth, you're affecting people at other tables. So if you suffer defeat and forced to retreat, the people on the tables on either side of you get extra monsters.
Mhm.
Or if you push past and help out other people at the other tables, some of their monsters get killed by arrow fire. And it's all about that interactivity that pushes things back and forth.
But what kind of, without obviously giving away a plot, what type of craziness can we kind of expect from the DRW epic?
Are you familiar with the spell plague?
I'm pretty familiar with it. Yes, I've heard of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Something about the spell
I'm
plague
gonna
again.
wiggle my eyebrows.
Yeah.
Spell plague. At the end of third edition, when we shifted to fourth, the Mistra died and magic broke in the Forgotten Realms and created the spell plague for a while. Most of that has been sorted out with the reemergence of Mystara, and the weave has been mostly repaired. Emphasis on the word mostly. And one of those places that have not been repaired is, can I say the
Sure.
and it is in the Yearwood of Aglar. So we're going to be dealing with spell plague. Anything goes kind of
Yes.
magic. It's like walking through the wild magic table in the off of the wild magic sorcerer, but everything is like that.
That's going to be great to put in an epic.
It's like, oh no, the tree has turned into a pile of cubes and is now an avalanche. But it's an avalanche going uphill. How does it? It doesn't. It's spelled like.
Yeah. So speaking
Um,
of obviously the time between third and fourth edition, and you had
Can we
actually,
turn everybody into mimics?
pardon?
Can we turn everyone into mimics?
Um, I just said, hey, Christian, Eric, let chaos reign. It's an epic.
Okay. You're now a mimic.
But speaking of like the different editions, one of the bigger books that you've written, especially was during towards the end of fourth edition, which was Menzoberranzan, City of Intrigue. You and what was it? Brian James, I believe, was the co-author with that. Something interesting I found out about that today. Pardon?
I said my mentor, Brian. That man is brilliant.
Awesome.
Love working with him. Love.
Maybe we'll chat with him and maybe see if we can't get him on the show here sometime here in the future.
He has forgotten more Forgotten Realms lore than I've ever learned. It's
Oh, wow. So what I learned today about this, I was looking at it, and initially, because it was kind of towards the end, because fourth edition only had like a 4 or 5 year run, and if I recall, was it something like that, 6 years or something like that for the fourth edition? The reason why, the reason why I asked,
2014.
yeah, because the reason why I ask is I played a couple of sessions of fourth edition and then kind of went back to 3.5, just because it didn't feel. At least to me, anyway. I've told everyone since then I'm glad to sit down and play a session if somebody wants to run a session of fourth edition, just to obviously want to learn whatever you can, especially as a DM, from those types of things. And you had written with him, again, I said the Menzoberranzan City of Intrigue, and it was mentioned, I saw today that I'd never seen a term that was called a edition neutral concept. What I was just wanted to ask you, what exactly did that mean in that situation?
It means no stat blocks.
Oh, okay. So there's no stat
Everything is lore.
Oh, okay.
All fluff, no crunch.
Which means that you could use it for fifth edition if you wanted to, right?
Yes, you could. So we were Menzoberranzan, the city that originated where Dritz de Werden originated from the R.A. Salvatore books that were extraordinarily popular. It is a massive drow metropolis underneath of the north of the Forgotten Realm, and it is completely dominated by followers of Lolth, who is the demon queen of spiders and the chief drow goddess who crushes down on everyone in the entire city, making them all flies caught in her web. And we were asked to write it. Brian and I were asked to write it and to update it to the next generation, which does for various properties, particularly Waterdeep. Every edition, Waterdeep gets its own big giant book, and it did. That's all true all the way up through fifth edition, where Dragon Heist is primarily a Waterdeep source book with an adventure attached. And we were asked to update Menzoberranzan, but they were in the middle of doing their D&D next playtest at the time, and so they knew that fourth edition was on its way out. What would become known as fifth edition hadn't been released yet, so they didn't have any of the rules. They were still working that out. So they said, well, we can't think of anything that has more lore and more flavor than Menzoberranzan. Can you write it without stat blocks? And Ryan said, Brian and I said, we will certainly try. And I think we did a very good job at it.
Oh, yeah.
We basically created our own mechanics in it, which were based off of the Volo's Guide mechanics, where you would have like rating systems for the various taverns Volo would visit, like 1 to 5 tankards for how good it is, 1 to 5 piles of coins for how expensive it is. How good is that inn is registered on a 1 to 5 pipe smokes. And so we did all of our bit for our little book here. And we were doing that with how much power they had with like swords for how much military power they had,
Okay.
fighters for how much clerical power they had with Lolth, and diamonds for how much war they had, or how much wealth they had.
Okay.
And since Bob Salvatore based the drow off of his city, off of Italian mafia,
Yeah.
all the houses are basically criminal crime families. And so
Nice.
they're all fighting with each other for dominion inside of the city. And so we just were able to detail each of the cities, each of the houses of where they stood and what their strengths were, what their current plots were, which is why it was City of Intrigue, because you really weren't supposed to be able to overthrow a house. You were
Hmm.
supposed to try to play the houses off of each other and to navigate through the society without ending up on the offering table to Lolth.
So how that's a good point. So how much of the older lore, basically, how much new lore did you get to create in there? Obviously, having to look back for research purposes at the previous editions of what happened in Menzoberranzan, but how much new did you get to create for the canon there?
A little bit. We were basically just advancing everything by a century
Hmm.
into the essentially how they dealt with the spell.
Okay.
And that was a lot of our entire efforts to deal with that. So there was it also synthesizes the lore that was in 5 different books at that point in time and try to push it all together in one book. So it's a really good resource for finding stuff that was scattered in City of the Spider Queen and Drow the Underdark and Dritz Do'Urden's Guide to the Underdark and Menzoberranzan's box set.
So, yeah.
All this stuff is completely out of print and no one had access to it because they hadn't invented D&D Beyond yet.
Hmm.
So they didn't have the PDFs public freely available. So a lot of this stuff hadn't been printed since like 90s. And we were bringing it all into one place.
So very similar, I think, was something that you had a collaborative effort again with the, which is legal for Adventurers League, by the way, which is the Moonshae's regional guide that you have up on the DM's Guild. Talk a little bit about that. I really love that. It's got some great backgrounds in it, and it talks about. It's actually got I'll let you explain the different factions, but like for those of you that play D&D Fifth Edition, you have like the Order of the Gauntlet, you have the Zentarum, you have the Emerald Enclave, and then you were able to invent some wonderful, or perhaps maybe just design some of the new factions that are in the Moonshaes that the players can play.
We couldn't call them factions.
Oh yes, that's right. What were they called again?
Organizations.
Organizations. There we
Yeah.
go. Yeah, so tell us a
Um,
little bit about all that.
which I understand why that point was made was they for the regional guide, uh, which is down here. Where'd I put it? Aha. They allow. Oh, we put out regional guides, and frankly, we probably should not have Rising Shadows. It should just say Moonshaes, because we wanted to let people know what we had and what they could do in these islands, because there's so much lore here, and we wanted to put together a brief introduction, which is why it's not terribly big. We tried to keep it on the narrow so that it wasn't terribly intimidating to people.
Hmm.
Um, comes in at 56 pages. The organizations were a lot of those factions, like the Emerald Enclave. Emerald Enclave might have fit the Lord's Alliance, the Gentarum. A lot of those others would not didn't really have a place in the Moonshaes, so we invented some new organizations that took their place.
Hmm.
Uh, Pretty much whenever you made your characters, where we had Kendrick loyalists, who are those who are trying to reestablish the monarchy, the Seraphal faithful, who are the ones that were following the Eladrin of Seraphal, the Wardens of the Deep Shays, That was one we invented because we invented the term deep shays for all the underground folk.
Which is awesome. Yeah.
Harbingers of Liberation, who are the Vikings, defenders of the Earth Mother for the Druids. And is there another one in here? Oh, Initiates of the Flame.
Oh, yes, yes, for the Flamstered, right?
Yeah. And the Moonshae Trade League. For anyone that wants to be part of the merchant class, the roguish organization.
That was something I really liked. Yeah, that's one of the things I really liked about when we would get the Moonshae Adventures. They would all have a page or two of lore in the back of the adventures when we got especially when we get them for premieres. Obviously, we got a lot of the all the premieres at the virtual. Again, this was during the pandemic, so we did most of the stuff was going on online. We started off with the first ones in person at Gen Con, and then shortly thereafter, the pandemic hit and everything. But I did love that when we got the premieres, we always had a sheet or two of lore in the back of it transferred over to that the regional guide. How much of that regional guide were you able to add new stuff, or how much of it was just from previous editions?
About 50-50.
Okay.
When I came on, we had 3 people working on it: Sean Merwin, Robert Allen. Robert was the brains behind the organizations. It was his brainchild, as he really wanted these player backgrounds and the player organizations to be included. Mm. Sean had done a lot of work on the islands of the Moonshaes, which was updating all of them from the older text and include bringing them up to speed to what was going on currently. Mm-hmm. And I did the first chapter, which was the overview, which was trying to summarize everything to get people into understanding the themes that we were going to use. Who were these folk that we keep talking about all the time? Who are the Northlanders? Who are the queer? And also, who are the major powers? What's a Khazgaroth? Which is who is the Earth Mother? And that is all of and why are moonwells so important? And that was my summary in the chapter 1. And then we went through the islands, and I kept trying to add in ideas for adventures, as many as I could, all over. Like every single island description should have had like 3 or so adventure hooks in there. Mm-hmm. Some of which we were able to do, some of them that we did not. The one I regret not using was from Narhelm. Narhelm is like the northern part of the island of Alaron. Think of them like the Rohan, the riders of Rohan. So Vikings on horses. Mm-hmm. And we put in there a little tidbit of adventurous shield maidens from Narhelm venture into the forest Moonshaes in search of unicorns. They attempt to coax a ride from these elusive creatures and gain a single hair from the unicorn's mane. Few succeed. Jarl's Ulf's daughter, Katalvir, intends to begin her quest this year.
That would have been a great adventure. Still possible, right? Still possible.
I have players asking for when we're going to have it. Write it on the Baldman Games Discord. I'm like, I wasn't able to fit it in. We might have to do that as a special mission.
There we go. Yeah. So I did also note something else, which I actually, my apologies, I have not had a chance to view this book as well. But I also noted that you had contributed to the book Demonomicon.
Demonomicon.
I think it was 2010. It might have been Dragonomicon or Demonomicon during that time period. I know you've written so many different, contributed to so many different things. So that might be a little bit of a deep dive.
Oh man, this is like 15 years ago. So is this a book, or was this I was doing some articles on Wizards sites for a bit.
I'm not sure if it was I happened to notice it when I was doing a little bit of research for tonight. It was actually listed when I went to obviously we can put the we're going to put the link up in our YouTube description of the Menzoberranzan City of Intrigue and all of the Moonshae stuff. But I was looking at the Menzoberranzan on the DM's Guild. I had mentioned that some of the writing credits for you.
I think I know the answer. That it would be Brian James, my co-writer, Menzoberranzan. He worked.
Oh, okay, because it said right there that you had worked on that as well on the
Someone's giving you false information. I'm not familiar with that one.
on the DM's Guild. Yeah.
I worked on the Menzoberranzan. I did a number of articles for the website.
Oh, okay.
For Wizards of the Coast for a while. One of the favorite ones we did do was the Greyhawk Grumbler.
Okay.
Which was tied to the Living Greyhawk campaign.
Yeah.
So to give people hints about adventures upcoming and activities and what is going on inside Hawk, we printed a newspaper.
Okay.
But it was an old school newspaper, so it was a broadsheet. So it was 8.5, 11 page forward and backward, which we crammed full of news articles from the Free City. Written by, so it was kind of one cross between yellow journalism, the Stephen Colbert, the Colbert, and maybe even some actual journalism. And it was a hoot because the writer would editorialize constantly, and he was not above fibbing. And was following up all these stories, and we were trying to hint towards the adventures and give people clues, and it was wildly popular.
So you could not only
very funny.
It's not only giving them hints about what were going to happen, but maybe even giving seeds for other people to have fun in Greyhawk and different things to do. Very similar to the Moonshae guide. So obviously, I personally have always talked about your lore, your knowledge of the different campaign worlds. Do you have your own campaign world?
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that. How long has it been around?
Well, I have the one I worked on when I was but I haven't touched that one in nearly 30, oh God, how old am I now? 20, 30 years, because I was working so much in Greyhawk and Forgotten Realms, and I was stealing it for parts. Lately in the home campaign, I've been dipping into Mystara.
Okay.
Which is the old known world of the original D&D box sets, because I'm putting the players through Isle of Dread.
Oh, okay, nice.
And updating that one to 5th edition. I've got the conversions from, I believe, Goodman Games put it out.
Yeah.
And I was enchanted by it. I was like, oh yeah, I want to do this, but I can also steal parts from Tomb of Annihilation. And stick some of the Cholt hex crawl and put that into the Isle. And and by the way, what if I put the Lost City, which was another old adventure, and that's the pyramid that's in the native village of Tanaroa, just south of the wall. And then I bet we could do Drums of Fire Mountain, which is another old adventure. And we totally need a pirate port. So I like cobbling together things into Frankenstein-level adventures so that players don't know which pieces I'm drawing from, but it all feels they have that connection to it.
Yeah, it all feels organic to the story. Yeah.
Now the one I am also planning for a future event with Jose Ortiz, whom you totally should have on the show, by the way. He was another admin from Living Greyhawk. We're updating some of the fairy adventures from Living Greyhawk, and we're setting them in a near world fantasy version of 12th century Europe, which I've delved into slightly with my webcomic Snow by Night.
Okay.
You go to snowbynight.com, you can actually see some of the information about that world where I said a webcomic, but that is set in the 1700s. If we go back 500 years before that, I've got an upcoming adventure campaign that's going to be in a fantasy version of Great Britain, or
Okay.
during the 12th century, which is going to deal with Druidian fairies, because we're drawing from the Greyhawk Adventures, just going to change it to this new campaign world that I'm building up. And also a Arthurian type England, where they are followers of the Lady of the Lake is their patron spirit. And so it's
That
going to have
sounds.
a very Arthurian feel to that part, but up in the hills they have the Celtic Druidism part.
Oh, that sounds like an amazing, amazing game.
And giants galore. What do the giants represent? Oh, giants represent bad things in British folklore.
Oh yes, oh
I will
yes.
also sprinkle in some fairies.
That sounds amazing. We'll definitely have to have you keep us up to date. As I mentioned, we're going to put all of these links for the webcomic, for the Dungeon Masters Guild products and such like that. Anything else you want as well, any of your social links. Where can people find you online? If you want to drop that here real quick for them, that way they can go check you out online. Any websites or anything like that, go ahead and let us know what those are.
Sure. Most of my stuff will be done through my studio website, which is mythmakers.com. Weirdly enough, you can actually find Savannah there too, because she works with me on a number of other projects. And that will also lead you to moonshaes.com, where we have listed all of the Rising Shadows adventures. We're now changing it up to make room for the Malefic Delusions adventures as well. So that's at mythmakers.com and moonshaes.com. And you can find me on Twitter at Eric underscore Menge, Menge.
All right. And what was the comic website again?
Snow by Night, all one word.com. And you can find that one through Mythmakers as well.
Awesome. All right. Well, Eric, thank you so much. It is about time for us to come to the end of the stream tonight. Thank you again so much for coming on. I love chatting with you, especially when we chat about lore. We could probably spend another 3 or 4 hours streaming just talking about different lore throughout the Forgotten Realms, especially the Moonshaes as well. But thank you so much. Thanks to everyone that stopped by and checked out the stream tonight. We will be posting it up to YouTube in about a week and a half, usually about a week or so. The following Monday, we'll post them onto our YouTube channel. If you want to join our community Discord channel for the Master of Dungeons community Discord, you can find that link below in the About Us section. Just click on the Discord panel. It will give you an invite there. You can also find a link to all of our social media, Twitter, Instagram, all of that. You can find that in the links down there as well to our link tree. Again, we thank everyone so much for the support. We appreciate it all. The patrons that we have, all of the people that have subbed to the channel, all the subs on YouTube is very much appreciated. Don't forget, tomorrow and Friday we do have our live video gameplay of Lord of the Rings Online for our dungeon delving sessions from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern time. We will see you all then. Eric, do you have anything else to say before we sign off?
It was a pleasure to be here. I thank you so much. And I'll be at Gen Con, assuming I can get a room, Dave. We'll have to see about that. And we might be doing some panels together, aren't we?
I think so. I think we are doing the panel. Yes.
Come talk to the BMG campaign. So it's going to be a fantastic summer of fun and fantasy.
That it is. All right. Well, we will definitely see you at Gen Con. And thanks everyone for watching. Have a great rest of your week. Happy adventuring. We'll see you later.
Have a great night.